Right? It's a little temperature joke for you there. Some of you got it, some of you are like, now I'm glad you're all here because, right, serving in the community, one of my friends told me this, he's like, yeah, community service, it's not just for convicts anymore, right? When I learned about what this organization stands for, I got pretty excited. Mostly because it has a very personal tie for me, at least this topic does. And it's been in the news, and I think everyone hears how their life affected by suicide or mental health in one way or another, okay? So I joke about this, but really thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being willing to help in any way that you can in your life, okay? So, bobsled, yes, I know, I don't look like these guys, okay? Now we get to the part where I explain this movie, right? So when I started bobsled, which was in high school, and I'll show you some photos a little bit later, I had a lot of people say, you bobsled, but you're not Jamaican. That works too, right? Okay, but I'm not Jamaican. So my first coach was this guy up top here, okay? His name was Randy Will. He's a 3-time Olympian, okay? 2 times competing, 1 time alternate, all right? So the guy on the bottom, his name is Pat Brown. Okay, anybody recognize that name? Yeah, you do? How do you know that name?
I work for Slot.
Oh, then you recognize that name, right? All right. So both of them were drivers. Pat started as a push athlete, right? Randy went to the games, Pat did not. So Pat was trying to figure out what he was going to do. Then he encountered a guy who was managing the Jamaicans team and said, hey, we need a coach for the Calgary Olympics, right? So the story is he's kind of a mixture of the manager and then Pat the coach, and John Candy's character was sticking those two together, right? Pat hates that movie, by the way, okay? But these two are my first 2 coaches, right? Randy was my first coach, Pat was my second coach, right? Both really amazing, taught me a lot of things. Neither one of them likes the movie. So Pat was the one who told us a lot, like, he'd tell us, that part's fake, that part's fake, that part's fake, that part's fake, right? One thing that is real, and you guys can come see it after if you want, this is from the movie. Not the good team, by the way. Not the good team. Right? But you guys can come hold this up. If anybody's daring, maybe we'll let you try it on. Okay? You guys think that.
You're all okay.
Okay. So these guys got me into sport, and they taught me what it means to be a bobsledder, how to drive down the track, all sorts of cool things, right? Like, I am so grateful to them. So a couple of things about bobsled. Who likes roller coasters? They like, okay, a couple of you. Who does not like roller coasters? Okay, it's usually even, right? It's usually 50-50. So the average roller coaster, you pull 2 to 3 times the force of gravity, right? We're at how many G's right now? 1. We're feeling 1 G, right? So 3 would be taking 2 of you and putting them on shoulders, right? So the astronauts feel 4 on takeoff. We feel up to 5.5 in bobsledding, wearing those fantastic spandex suits. Okay? You can black out in bobsled, by the way. Just doesn't happen very often. So I took a BYU rugby player down the track one time. Pretty tough kid, right? Put him in the back of the 2-man sled. We're driving down the track, and I can hear him in the back. He's laughing. He's like, "Oh, this is easy, huh?" Then we hit the first big turn on the track, and I hear this like, which is great because number one, you look at him and you're like, how do we fit him in the sled? I don't know. But take that big old guy who's used to getting smacked around without, and he calls them wussy football pads, right? Turn him into Chewbacca. And he was dead quiet the rest of the way down the track. So bobsled's kind of a great equalizer there. So up here in the top left corner, let's see, here we go. That one. That's me, and that's my dad. Looks like President Bush. This was our driver, Bill Tavares, and then that was our brakeman, Steve Macklin, who became a really good friend. And he's actually a drag racer now. So if any of you go out to the races, he drives funny cars now. His bobsled wasn't fast enough. But down here, right, that's Randy Will, my first coach, shoving us off. They gave us pretty much 30 seconds of instruction. They said, sit, hold, don't die, have fun. Like that was it. That was it. So fast forward many years, and I became a driver and 2 and 4 man for the United States, and then I was the head coach for the U.S. Adaptive Bobsled team, which I'll tell you guys a little bit about them in just a little bit later. Okay. So some of the other stuff, I did also do drag racing. So before I got into bobsled, I was driving these little babies powered by a lawnmower engine. You guys see these? Yeah, like 65 to 80 miles an hour, depending on your class. It was awesome. And that's my dad right there, younger George Bush. He was really supportive of all these crazy things we did. So it was awesome. And I published 2 books, and I'm working on a 3rd, which I'll tell you about a little bit later. Actually, about both those a little bit later. So again, I coach the U.S. Adaptive Bobsled team. What does that mean? Adaptive, just think Paralympic. So the athletes I worked with were in wheelchairs or were amputees. So a lot of these guys were, some were in car accidents, some motorcycle accidents, one was a skiing accident, one was cancer, all sorts of just really cool stories. Like it was really humbling for me to sit down with them and talk to them about the challenges they had faced in their own life. And what really was eye-opening for me was how many of them did consider suicide. You know, imagine if your life changes that dramatically in a day, right? This kid right here, his name is Galoa, and I feel bad because it's kind of almost spelled like koala, like koala bear. So, big old tough kid, whenever we go anywhere, the announcers would always announce him, Koala, or a koala wolfgram, if you guys know that. But when he was, I think it was 8 years old, I'm going to say, got diagnosed with cancer, like bone cancer. So they took out his femur, and then they took his tibia and fibia, flipped it upside down, stuck it in his leg, and that's how he has an upper leg now. So first person in the world to ever have that done. So just really, really cool things. And you know, the fact that they got on the ice was crazy because everybody thought this was too dangerous. I mean, if you have titanium rods fused into your spine, and you go do this, the question was, what happens if you crash? And I asked him that once. I said, I will help you guys make this happen. I'll help you with your dreams. Let's go to the Paralympics, all that good stuff. What happens if you crash? I don't know. And they just looked at me and they said, Coach, what's going to happen? We can't get paralyzed again. I didn't laugh because I was like, is this supposed to be funny? They're like, you can laugh, Coach. I'm like, I don't know about this. Okay? But I had some success along the way. I did my own sport. I won lots of races, lost lots of races, so on and so forth. Okay? What I discovered, what Randy and Pat, my first 2 coaches, gave to me was an outlet for happiness. Okay? We all kind of have to find our own, right? We have to find the things that make us happy. Bobsled did, and it's interesting. So this is King, I always cannot pronounce his name, right? He's the king of Bhutan. And it's really cool. Over there, they do things a little bit differently, right? Who can tell me what GDP is for a country?
Gross domestic product.
Okay, right, gross domestic product, right? It's focusing on like financial growth, that sort of thing. In Bhutan, they do it differently. They said, we look for the GNH, the gross national happiness. That is far more important than gross national product. Okay? They make decisions based on what's best for their country, what's going to bring the most happiness, right, to the people in their country. Okay? The reason bobsled became so important to me was because it became the central factor in my life for my personal gross national happiness. All the decisions I made were focused around, is this going to get me happier? Is this going to help me in this sport? This sort of, okay? So one day my coach came to me and he just said, I need you to go to this place, go speak to these people, good luck. And that was it. And that's kind of how I started this crazy speaking thing. Which is funny, because when people think motivational speaker, they think this, right? Raise your hand if you know who that is. If you've seen the Saturday Night Live, right? What's the funny thing he says? You will live in a van down by the river, right? Promise I'm not that kind of a motivational speaker. I thought this was funny. The sanity of the average banquet speaker, which is motivational speaker, right? The sanity of the average banquet speaker lasts about 2.5 months. At the end of that time, he begins to mutter to himself and calls out in his sleep. Not totally true, right? Sometimes we do, but it's fun, right? I wanted to take that happiness that I felt with bobsled and then share it with others, okay? So I accepted my coach's invitation to go speak, and here I am, many, many years later, lots of speaking all over and so forth, okay? But I prefer the term inspirational speaker. Why do you guys think that is? Okay, what's the difference between motivation and inspiration? That's it, you're thinking, right? What's the difference?
Inspiration is on motivation.
Yes. Inspiration comes externally, motivation comes internally. Right? I can't give you motivation, I can only try to provide facts that I've seen work, things that I've experienced in my own life, and hopefully inspire you to feel that motivation, right, to do X, Y, Z, and so forth, okay? I have no magic beans, I hate to break that to you. So, I grew up in Oklahoma, born in Pennsylvania, grew up in Oklahoma, okay? Very ironic that I ended up in the sport of bobsled. Has anybody heard of this guy before, Jim Thorpe?
Yes.
Yeah? Who was he?
Oh, I just went to Jim Thorpe. There's a place in Pennsylvania.
Yes. Partially because they made a deal with his wife to have his body buried there. Right? That's kind of where he came. Yeah.
Well, it's a very famous Native American athlete.
Yeah.
And just a do everything guy in his generation.
Is he the one that had to do
He was, right? He's getting ready to compete in the game. Somebody steals his shoes.
Yep.
And I think it's amazing because what did he do?
He went to the, found one in the garbage.
Yeah, like he finds 2 mismatched shoes. They didn't even fit him.
Yeah.
And he goes out and he wins gold medals. You know what I mean? So if that's not an example of how to keep a positive attitude in a rough situation, like that's it right there. So yeah, he was very famous because they said he could do any sport he decided to play. I mean, he excelled at football, baseball. He got gold in the pentathlon and decathlon in the 1912 Olympics. Does anybody know how hard that is? Like, those are the 2 really most challenging events at the games because you have to do almost all the track and field events, okay? So he was from the Sac and the Fox Nations, and his Indian name was Bright Path, okay? Now, when I started in bobsled, I started kind of researching other athletes. I wanted to see what did they do with their lives, what did they do with their sport to leave a good impact, okay? And then how did they just live? How did they just live? And one funny thing I found, there was a reporter who asked Jim, and they said, "What is your Indian name?" And he said, "He who drags foot." Right? I mean, and the reporter's like, "Really?" So he writes it down, right? The fastest guy in the world. He was the most incredible athlete. But one of the things that I learned from him related to happiness, right, is this right here. He said, "I never was content unless I was trying my skill or testing my endurance." Okay? I get asked to speak a lot at schools, a lot of junior high and high schools, work with a lot of people, right? Because bobsled is cool, it's sexy, I can get their attention, and then we talk about whatever the school wants me to talk about, right? But this is one of the major ones right here. Jim Thorpe knew that nothing comes free, right? Nothing comes without effort, nothing comes without, right, mental attitude and perseverance and dedication and commitment and so forth, right? So by his example, I saw, okay, if I want to be happy and continue happiness in this sport, I got to stick with it, okay? I just have one problem with that, okay? Which I'll tell you guys about in just a second. So I got to go on and represent the United States and race in this cool sport, all that good stuff. So I'm the guy up front in all these pictures right here, mostly because I got tired of getting beat up in the back by other bad drivers. So I thought I'm just going to drive and so on and so forth, okay? What you can't see, let's go back to this, what you can't see in these pictures is the problem I was talking about, right? I, like all of us, was going for a gross national happiness level in my life, right? I'm trying to follow these Olympic principles, right? Proven principles, principles that bring success, right? I knew what I wanted to do, but there was a struggle going on, okay? I'm going to tell you guys about that in just a second, but I want to show you a video first of what it looks like to go down the track. Has anybody here tried it? They tried it? You tried it. Did you? So you went to the track. Did you do the winter one?
Yeah,
What'd you think?
that was awesome.
Yeah?
It was awesome. The skeleton was wild.
You do it again?
Oh yeah.
You got issues. Wait, you did it? Yeah, did you do the summer or the winter? You did the winter one on the very top? Yeah, did you sit in the number 2 spot or the number 3 spot? Number 2? Okay. Make sure you stay back off the driver. I've driven those, and I've had people not stay off the driver. It's very difficult to drive at 90 miles an hour when somebody's helmet is hitting your helmet all the way, okay? So let's see. So you guys do Park City track. Do you remember how many turns there are on the track?
The only thing I remember is all the last time.
That's about all most people remember, right? Do you know how many turns are on the track?
8.
No. Double that, right? We're looking at 15, okay? So we'll see if you guys can count them. In your head, count the turns in this video. Maybe?
Great.
I know, right? We got audio, but not video. Let's try this. Give me just a second. Let's see if it works this way. Wow. I may have to look at those during the break. I'll look at the videos during the break and I'll see if I can make them work, I promise. Okay? So, then we'll test your math after the break. We'll do that. But, let's see if this works here. Maybe. There we go. That's what your face looks like going on the track, by the way. So in between training, while we were up there at the track, we would work up there as well. So we'd take people around the track, explain how the sport works, how the track works, and so on and so forth, right? So I had this group with me, and we're setting on the turns, and it was turn 12, and it's this big old right-hand turn, and everybody's kind of standing right here, and I knew a sled was coming because I could hear it, and like a 4-man sled rumbles down the track. It sounds like a train coming down the track, right? So you can hear it from several turns up, so I'm talking to them, and then I'm like, everybody ready? Point right over it, and it just roars right past, right? And it's funny because sometimes some of the adults let out words that should not be let out. There's kids around and stuff like that. But one lady shouts out, she's like, why would anybody do that? I raise my hand, I'm like, because it's the coolest thing in the world. Right? It's awesome. So much fun. But then, fast forward a couple of years, right, to where I almost took my own life by suicide. And I realized it's that same question that people ask. Right? Why would anybody do that? Yeah? And I want to talk a little bit today about my story to see if maybe I can answer that question, at least a little bit. I understand that everybody here has, in one way or another, been touched by suicide. For those of you who have lost somebody, I am tremendously sorry. My heart goes out to you. And again, I hope that maybe by telling my story, I can answer some of those questions you might have. Okay? So I want to start off with a story, with a different story, not my story. So again, I grew up in Pennsylvania, or was born in Pennsylvania. So the Revolutionary War was always big in our family. Okay? I had ancestors that fought with General Washington, and so studying early American history was always important, right? So there's a story of an old man who was out on a wintry road, okay? And it's getting dark, and he's walking along. And his feet are cold, he's hungry, okay? and he hears a group of horsemen coming up on the road. And so he kind of stands off to the side, and he watches the first one come through. The first one is a colonel in the Continental Army, right? Think of the tri-corner hat and the blue and the white uniform and so forth. And he watches this colonel ride past. The colonel looks at him. The old man doesn't say anything, and the colonel just takes off. Okay? Then he watches another rider come up. Looks like maybe he's a secretary for someone important, who knows. Same thing, secretary looks at him, takes off. Okay? The next 4 riders come through. And then he sees another rider come up, and the old man stops. And he says, "Will you please let me ride your horse for a little bit? I'm tired." And the rider gets off the horse. He says, "Absolutely," and he helps him up on the horse. And then the rider leads the horse, "Where do you live?" And so he takes him several miles off the road to his house, helps him off the horse, helps him get in his home, right? And then as the rider gets back on his horse, he says, "I noticed you didn't stop any of the other riders. Why not?" This is what the old man said. He said, "When I looked in your eyes, kindness and compassion were evident." The rider accepted that, nodded, wished him good night, and left. The rider was the President of the United States of America, right? Thomas Jefferson. Now, I bring up that story because when I look at your eyes, I can see the kindness and compassion, right? I've noticed that since I walked in here. And I'm grateful for that because to do what we must do as advocates for suicide prevention, it requires kindness and compassion at an extreme level, right? Because we will have to go, I hope this sounds right, but we will have to go into some dark places to help others, right? Not exactly inside ourselves, but we will have to be brave and be willing to step into their dark places and help them out of them, right? So, one, we want to make sure that we have that same kindness and compassion in our eyes, okay? So, life is worth living. So today I want to talk about why I almost took my life by suicide, how I found life's worth, and what we can do together, okay? Another shorter version of that title is Things I Learned While Gravity and Life Smashed My Face In. Okay? That's pretty much how this is going to roll out. Okay? So like I told you, I was born in Pennsylvania, grew up in Oklahoma and Utah, so beautiful little baby up there. I played baseball and soccer. If you notice, in Oklahoma, if you break your hand, you just keep on playing. That cast makes a great weapon. And again, then I got into drag racing over there, right? So I think I was like 12 years old right there, dragging those things. So that explains all the speeding tickets I have now as an adult. But then I got into bobsled, graduated high school. I went on a mission for my church, okay? Anybody seeing any red flags here? Any red flags? You should be worried about this kid, okay? So let's keep going. Came back, got back into bobsled, made the president's list at Salt Lake Community College. Anybody know how you make the president's list? I didn't know either until I got the letter. I hadn't either until I got the letter, okay? So to make the president's list, I'm trying to remember this because it's been a few years, you have to take, I believe it's 15, I think it's 16 credit hours or more, right? Or no, I think it's 18 for the president's list. 18 credit hours, and you have to have an average GPA of 3.75 or higher for that semester, right? Yeah, I had no social life that semester. I was close the whole time, right? And I had great friends, you know what I mean? Like, these are some of my friends getting back from the Olympics, the Italy Olympics, right? Again, anybody seeing any red flags with this?
Yes. You have not failed at anything.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay. Not failed at anything that I've shown you.
That you impact of something hard.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I know you like practice and
Yeah.
you know you work really hard,
No. Don't. It is good because it is true. That is actually very true. I had really, to a certain extent, I had it. Like I was very lucky. Like I was very lucky. I had, my dad started his own international company, so financially we were doing pretty good. I had good schools, good teachers. I actually liked school, so I did really well in school. Did well in Boy Scouts and all that sort of thing. And, yeah.
Well, question, is this all something that you wanted to do, or is it something that your parents were pushing you to do?
It's a good question. At that time, when I was younger, I didn't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you were to ask me at 12, 13, 14, then I'm starting to kind of figure out. Bobsled was probably the first thing when I decided, this is what I want to do. But the other things I thought I wanted to, right?
So no peer pressure, no telling you had to be the perfect son, you had to do all this stuff. More.
Maybe. Maybe.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
We're analyzing by pictures, right? That's what we're doing. We're analyzing by pictures, right? And so you both have some truth and some valid points, okay? And the reason I want to ask this is, it's very difficult to analyze somebody's life by what we see on social media or what they show us, right? It is really difficult. So even nowadays, it's very easy for people to slip under the radar. And this is what I always tell educators and even parents. I say, just because the kid's doing good by what you think does not mean they're doing good internally. Ask the right questions, okay? So, here's some facts. Spent over 1,200 days on the ice. I mean, that's actually probably changed now. This sheet was a couple of years old. Spent over $75,000 in the sport. Won races, lost races, and then almost took my life. Okay, right? Thought I just slipped that one right in there under the radar almost, right? Because it kind of came out of nowhere, and it is partially by what you said. It was when things got really difficult. It wasn't. It was. I threw myself into the pursuit of the Olympics instead of really knowing how to deal with them in a way, right? So that was a factor to it. So we'll kind of get past the why in a second. So suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States right now, right? That's pretty eye-opening right there. So if any of you came today wondering like, okay, why are we doing this? That's one of the reasons right there. So in 2013, 47,000 Americans died by suicide. That's a tragic number. It's the small number, right? The bigger number is the one next to it, right? 1,400,000 people tried, right? That's a lot right there, okay? Yeah, and last year was even higher, from what I understand, okay? And again, I was almost one of those statistics years earlier, okay? That's why I do say thank you for being here, because there are people in the next 2 months that could be a statistic, not for what you will be doing. So thank you for being willing, okay? So, let's look at this for a second. So this blue line is the national average, and the red line is Utah's average, okay? So, a bit higher, right? A bit higher. And we could do a whole discussion session on why that number's a little bit higher, but let's just leave it as it's higher, right? It's higher, okay? So, let's look at this for a second, okay? So, again, my story is going to be intermixed with all of this, so if I jump around, I do apologize, but I'm trying to do a little bit of my story and then things that relate to it, okay? So one thing I found was this myth that suicide only affects individuals with mental health conditions, right? So let me go back to that earlier question. In showing you all the things I was doing in high school, in college, and then training for the Olympics, and serving the mission of my church, and all these different things, did it look like I had any major mental health conditions, right? So how did I explain to myself what was going on? Well, my first thought was, there's something wrong with me, I must be broken, right? Or I'm weak, okay? Has anybody seen those questions floating out there when it comes to mental health and suicide prevention and so forth, those thoughts, right? If they're struggling, they must just be weak. There's something wrong with them, right? All false things. Many people with mental illness are not affected by suicidal thoughts, and not all people who attempt or die by suicide have mental illness. Right? Can we all agree with that? Okay. Right? One of the reasons I think this is so important to get across is that when I started to struggle, and I had a couple of well-meaning friends say, like, well, maybe there's a mental health thing going on. What I thought was, well, that means I have a permanent condition that there is nothing I can do about, right? Which brought on feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, right? Because you feel like there's nothing you can do, okay? So again, we need to be very careful by what terms we say to people or what conditions or labels we try to put on them when they're struggling. Especially if they're struggling. They might not know any better, and they may think you're right, and they may live their life according to that label, right? Okay? So let's look at some of the risk factors of suicide. Some of you might have seen these already. For some of you, these might be new, okay? So, substance abuse, definitely a big factor that can contribute to suicide. Physical disability or illness, major loss of a friend or family member. Bullying is huge right now. Right? It is major in our schools. Mental health condition, again, loss, family member or friend. And access to harmful means, we'll talk about that in just a second. Or relationship problems. That could mean their parents are getting divorced. That could mean they're in a marriage that's now separated, or all sorts of things, right? Why are these considered risk factors and not, why would we use the term risk factor instead of maybe something more concrete? Yeah.
Because you can have somebody that experiences all of this and not have thoughts of suicide.
Yes. Yeah, right? So we don't want to say, like, because this is happening, you're at risk for suicide, right? It's more of, if we're watching, if we're vigilant to those around us, and we know someone's got this going on, we might watch, just look more closely, and just be like, hey, I'm going to keep an eye on them, right? Doesn't mean have to confront them, like, are you suicidal, right? It's more of like, I know you're hurting, right? You want to talk about things, what's going on, right? So yeah, so it could be a contributing factor, but that ultimately falls back on the individual, right? These are not curses that automatically lead to suicide. But these are things we watch for because they could increase stress, bring in those feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, and so forth, okay?
Inversely,
yeah.
you could have somebody thinking about suicide without any of those.
Yeah, right? And that's, again, that's kind of where I was. I was like in that kind of golden zone. Like, I was the kid that the teachers would talk to the other parents and say, like, we're putting your student next to Jeremy because he doesn't talk in class, he does his work, and then your kid will shut up in class and do their work and stuff like that, right? So my mom always laughed about parent-teacher conference. She's like, the only reason I go is to listen to them say that you're a good student. Like, that's it, okay? And I'm not bragging, I'm just saying I did like school. So that major box was never checked for me, right? And I didn't have any of these major risk factors, but I did have a couple ones, and this took me some years to figure out later on. Relationship problems that I did not show you, and I don't go into a lot of detail because I do love my family, was my parents were normal people. They fought, right? And I was the third of 4 children. That puts me as a middle child, which means I'm the what? Sometimes. Oh, yeah, I was a cool one. No, so a peacemaker very often, right? Middle child's usually a peacemaker, right? So I got involved trying to help them, that sort of thing, and I got involved with my siblings who were fighting and so forth. I was bullied, right? I was bullied. Junior high, a little bit in high school and so forth, okay? There was some trauma related to really those first 2, and then when you're training for the Olympics, you can imagine there's probably a little bit of stress involved, okay? With definitely an unhealthy dose of perfectionism, right? And what I learned was, the more successful I was, the more apparently people like that. Which means when you're in high school, you're trying to get people to like you. Mm-hmm. Right? So it just kind of built, right? Right? Which, on the surface, doesn't sound like a bad thing. but it adds up over time. That's why, again, I tell educators, just because a student is doing good in school doesn't mean they're doing good in their personal life. They can have great grades, but be contemplating suicide because they're being bullied, but they're so ashamed they haven't told anybody, right? So those risk factors we went over, those are things to keep in mind and just watch for, right? But a bigger thing is just, I tell you, go with your gut. If you feel like somebody's hurting, ask them. Tell them you care enough about them to ask the direct questions, okay? So for me, this all led to anxiety, right? And I thought I was alone until I looked at this statistic right here, okay? So this is, if you took your average classroom, I believe this was the average high school classroom in the United States, right? 25% of the kids are battling anxiety, right? Is that a shock to anybody? High school's tough, right? Like it is tough. It is a hard time, right? 11% are battling depression, 3% other mood disorders, you have ADHD, an eating disorder, 1% of the spectrum, and then the other ones just don't qualify, right? Which of those, yes?
I was going to say, anxiety could be a contributing factor to some of the others as well, depression and
Yes.
ADHD. So that I would say maybe that is not on that chart because there might be dual.
Well, and we know how honest teenagers can be when it comes to things they're struggling about, right? So this is general guidelines. And that's not to dig at teenagers, right? They feel that they need to have it all together to be accepted. So it's difficult for them to say, these are things I'm struggling with. But yeah, anxiety definitely contributes to all the other ones, right? Which group would be the most worrisome? Okay. Which ones? Why would you say that?
We didn't hear
Well, he said the gray ones, the ones in gray, right? And it was interesting because he said those are unknown statistics, and we don't, you know, there could be other things that affect them. Yeah.
The one that the most worrisome is my kid.
Yeah. Right? No, that's a great answer, right? It starts at home. It definitely does, right? For the sake of generally speaking, honestly, the one that has the highest suicide rate is this one,
That's what I was going to say.
right there.
I would say the one who feels most alone that doesn't know the other people have problems too. And
Which was,
your child.
right? Yeah, it was because, so I went to Skyline High School down in Holiday, right? Which is a great school. Like, I loved it. I thought it was awesome. But when I went to school, like a very normal teenager who doesn't have all these social awareness that maybe as adults we have, I thought I was the only one struggling. Like, I would go to parties and I'd say, why am I the only one who's feeling like they're just churning inside? Everybody else is having this great old time, you know? So I would build that story in my head because I'm an author, so I'm great at writing stories. So yes, so I did have those feelings of feeling alone, that everybody else was in the gray, but I was in the yellow with occasional blue, and do you know what I mean? So yeah, okay. Any other thoughts? I love discussion, by the way. Any questions? No? Okay. So we're going to come back to this a little bit later. So this led me to this next myth that I encountered, right? So I won't tell you all my story about like the plan I had or that sort of thing, right? Because we don't talk about those things with suicide prevention, okay? Just say I knew I had my plan, I knew what was going to happen, okay? And I had a really good friend who got so pissed right when she found out. And she said, that's so selfish. And I remember my first thought was like, no, it's not. Right? Right? Isn't that what people say? Like, suicide is selfish. Right? Why do they say that?
They don't know Jack.
Okay. Because they're looking from the outside in, right? They're saying you're going to hurt all these people, right? Why does the person who's thinking about it not think it's selfish?
Because they think they're doing what's best for everyone else.
You're doing everybody's favor.
Okay. Keep going.
Blood pressure. Don't bear with off without me.
Yeah. Right?
You don't have to worry about this.
Yeah. Right? It's almost like they think they're doing a service, right? So typically people do not die by suicide because they do not want to live. I know that sounds like a weird sentence, but follow me. People die by suicide because they want to end their suffering or the suffering they feel they're causing others. These individuals are suffering so deeply that they feel helpless and hopeless. Okay? Right? It's not that they want to hurt others. And it's not that they want their life to end. It's just they don't see another alternative. Right? Like, again, come back to my story. So I grew up in a Christian home, right? So tons of prayer, right? Asking for help with what I was struggling with, right? I was a good student. I did everything in Boy Scouts. I got the Eagle Scout and so forth, okay? I was training around these Olympians, and they were super cool. Like, they were awesome. They were telling me all the things that they were doing to train for the games. And so they were giving me the success principles that I knew were true. So I was trying to apply those and all these different things. And I wasn't really fighting with anybody. I was never bullied, right? Like, I had good friends, right? I had some good talents. Like, I was a writer, I was an artist, all sorts of things, right? So in my mind, I was doing everything right, okay? So again, when I reached that point, I thought, well, I have tried everything else, and nothing has solved the problem. So it wasn't a selfish choice, it was almost a logical choice. This must be the only answer left, okay? Why is that not true? I mean, it felt true for me, but why was what I just told you, what I thought, that I tried everything else and nothing else works? Why is that not true?
Well, first, your family would totally disagree. And your friends would disagree. And you only want to put logic into your thinking that, wait, you have so much more to live for. You've hit all these major goals in your whole life.
But your logic is going on. Not the date with other people. You're not actually talking to someone else.
Okay, I like that, and I like that. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
But you haven't found anything else.
keep going.
You haven't found anything. You only knew the scope of solutions that you were operating under. You haven't bothered to talk to anybody else more than you did.
Which is why teenagers have a higher or lower suicide rate. Because they are doing that, right? They are ashamed by it, and they don't want to talk to others, and so they're using their very limited, right, understanding and skill set to try to solve a very immense problem, right? So the only reason, and I will be completely honest with you, the only reason that I made it through as a teenager when all this was going on was because of bobsled, right? I had something that was greater than the struggle, and so I didn't have all the solutions, but I believe if I keep going on this path, I'll find the solutions. So yes, 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 yes.
Do you
Yeah.
remember feeling suicidal as a teen?
No, it was more of just, I explained it one time to a friend, like someone had poured molten lava into my veins, and it was flowing through my body.
And you couldn't control.
No. Right? So again, I tried harder to do the right things, right? And bobsled was a good outlet. It was a distraction in a way, but it was also healthy. Does that make sense? Right? But yeah, but no, I couldn't control it. And so then you start feeling like, well, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. Okay.
There's probably a lot of fear too.
What do you mean?
Fear as if you can't get help with physicians, with psychologists, the medication they've got to put you on, all those things.
Yeah.
Stop your career.
Well, that was definitely a concern. It was like, if they put me on something, am I going to be able to drive sleds at the same speed, right? So everyone put your hands up for just a second. Put them like this. Count of 3, clap together as fast as you can. 1, 2, 3. That is how long you have in a turn to drive right or wrong when you're piloting a bobsled. So I was absolutely worried if they put something that was going to slow my reaction time, right? And again, that's a very young mindset, but that was definitely wrong. My fear was actually in not knowing how to stop those sensations I described. My fear was that I would wake up each day and tomorrow would be the day that I would feel like. Right? Imagine Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, but like that, right? Right? And that's a very difficult thing to challenge. And that's what a lot of people who reach the point of suicide planning and not just ideation, but they reach the planning point because they've done the cycle. And again, they think they've tried everything and they really haven't, right? And that's where we come in. Right? We'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's where we come in, is providing an outside perspective and and more resources than they have internally, right? So, any other thoughts or questions? Yeah.
I think a lot of people are ashamed to talk about it too, because like you said, your dad was successful, you were in a family, you don't want to be the damage to the family.
Yeah. Which is also hard as a teenager overall, right? Because you kind of feel like you're the fish in the shark tank, right? If you admit that there's weakness going on, you feel like you're putting blood in the water, and it comes to bullies and all that good stuff, right? So yeah.
Seems like athletes do have the problem of being weak. They don't want to be weak.
We have no problems. I don't know what you're talking about. But you are right? Yeah.
That's the mentality. That's strong no matter what. So
Well, you're afraid of losing your spot, right? Like you're afraid if I have to take time off, this person's going to take my spot and I lose. Does that make sense? Especially in bobsled, you get points to your races. So that was one of the reasons that I was actually limited in my career. It was a self-imposed belief, but I thought that if I reached this, the Olympic level, my fear was what happens if I get there and I have a breakdown in front of the world and all the sponsors who got me there and everything like that, right? So I was afraid to be weak, even though I knew there was a weakness, which it's not a very good cycle to be in. It's like a spin cycle, it just goes and goes and goes and goes, okay? So thank you for everyone's comments, by the way. Let's keep that going. I thought about this, and you can take this for what it's worth, but this is my greatest explanation of that earlier question of why would somebody do that, okay? Suicide occurs when the amount of pain, fear, shame a person feels overwhelms their self-perceived, right? We talked about the self-perceived capacity to handle it or their desire to do so, okay? That's why it happens right there. Yes?
Whenever I talk to students, especially the boys, because I'll just flat out ask the questions, the hard ones.
Yeah.
And they'll say, I do not want to put any more pressure on my family. I don't want to disappoint them.
Yeah.
I don't want to burden them.
Right.
All the time. And some parents take it pretty hard. They don't want to be told your kid needs help.
Yeah.
And some parents don't listen, and some of them are like, oh my gosh, I cannot know you're feeling that way.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell all the kids, your parents probably have no idea that this is how you feel right now. Absolutely zero, which I'm usually right. So, well, I mean, in the respect that, the parents or their guardian, whoever it is, they don't know. They don't know how much their child is afraid to talk to them because they feel that pain, fear, and shame, and they don't want to disappoint.
Yeah.
And whatever's going on at home, they don't want to add to it.
Definitely. So they feel like they have to just...
The parents want to deal with it either.
Exactly.
They don't have the tools either.
Parents
Yeah,
want
They don't have to, they haven't taught this right.
Yeah.
You want to have a kid that's suicidal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that's where us as advocates, when we educate ourselves, we can kind of pass it on a little bit. But yeah, but I have found that to be true. Like you'll get parents that are just absolutely in denial. There's no way my kid's suffering like that. Yeah, let's talk about the cutting they're doing, or just the things like that, right? Like kids know very well how to keep the parents happy because the parents are happy and they get to keep their privileges and their freedoms, right? And then also they feel like guilty if I bring this to dad's working tons, a job and a half already, and mom's working full time and taking care of the house and everything. I don't want to add to their burden, right? So they try to deal with it by themselves, which leads back to that problem of limited skill set, and the problem eventually explodes. They might reach this point. Okay. Any other thoughts on that? Yeah.
So, I have a cousin that when his son had severely autistic,
Yeah.
and he was like, so they struggle thinking that they as parents have done something wrong.
Yeah.
And out of their own shame, they need to get help.
Okay.
And so, and they're highly educated.
Yeah.
But it took 2 years before they felt that they would need to get out themselves psychologists,
Yeah.
sessions,
Yeah.
to say, it's not that he needs help. And this is why when you get him out, he'll do better.
Yeah.
And it's not something that you ignore. And so on the parent side, it's not always a crappy parent, so that they don't have their ignorance. But if you let it go,
then you're a crappy person.
then you are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's very common that if you don't have knowledge, you can't apply knowledge, right? If you're not aware of something to be aware of, you can't be aware of it, which sounds incredibly logical because it is. So a lot of times you'll get good parents that are just, they're doing their best, but they don't know the signs to watch for, or maybe they are a little overwhelmed in trying to work their jobs and run a household and do all the things required of them. Maybe they missed the little signs, right? And we're going to talk about those next, actually. We'll move that in just a second. So who has seen this scale at a doctor's office, right? How's your pain today? On a little 1 to 10, right? I always joke, this is the scale of 1 to I want to punch you in the face, right? So it actually applies to the level of distress we're talking about, okay? So somebody with the green, right? Things are going well in their life, right? They're doing good socially, they're doing good with their family, they're doing good academically, maybe athletically or musically or whatever it might be, right? You got a great career, all that stuff's going good. So they're doing okay, right? But then maybe one of those risk factors kicks in that we talked about. Maybe there's a loss, maybe there's just something distressing that happens. It might kick them over into the red, okay? What I explain to people is when they get over into the red, right, they're in such a level of pain that it is very difficult to talk logic to them, right? They don't want to hear the words that it's going to get better, right? They don't want to hear that you have a lot to live for. What do they want to hear?
You're okay.
Wait, who says it? Yeah. Okay, they want to hear that you're okay, and what's the magic?
We can fix it.
They want to know there's a solution, right? If I go to the doctor's office and I've broken my arm, I don't want to hear him say it's going to get better. Yeah, right? Like, right?
We can calcium it, so there's a way to fix it.
Take 2 to go in the morning.
Right. Okay, and we're going to talk about the different ways we can handle this when somebody's in crisis mode, but that's it. They want to know that there's hope. That's all they need to hear at the moment, right? And then you start planning about those long-term things that are going to make the changes, right? But if you start trying to get into a logical debate with somebody in crisis mode, how well does it work? Right? Because they're in such a level of pain that your logic is hitting their brick wall of pain and bouncing right off. You can talk to your blue in the face, it doesn't matter. What they need to hear is that they're okay, they're going to be okay, and that there's solutions to be found, and that you're going to help them find them. And others who are professionals are going to help them find them, right? That is how you talk somebody down off that ledge. I'm not saying it's the only way, but that has been the most effective in my experience. To have somebody sit by you and tell you they understand you're going to be okay, right? And that there are solutions, man, that just means the world right there. Okay, so it's interesting. So coming back to this for a second, right? I know we kind of joked about seeing this in the doctor's office. I didn't realize until I was actually putting this presentation together that I've seen that before with athletes, right? Again, I've been a coach, I've worked with sports psychologists and so forth, okay? Who has played sports in here before? Okay, sports, okay. What does being in the zone mean? What is that? Okay, on top of your game. What is that? What is it?
Can't be stopped.
Okay, can't be stopped. Focus, blinders, yeah.
It's that point where you can just do it and your brain is not in the way.
Right? Yeah.
It just happened.
It's autopilot.
Yeah.
Like, it is crazy because I've actually driven down the bobsled track, crossed the finish line, and I don't remember driving the track. Like, I've been in that zone, right? It's this perfect place. We say you're up here in the green, okay? So you're in the zone. Okay, you're in the zone, right? So this happens mentally and emotionally, right? This applies to those we work with, or at school, sports, in our own home, in our neighborhood, in our church. We get a sense of where they are. I use the word energetically, right? I know it has a lot of meanings, but I just mean like you can look at somebody, you can get a sense of where they're at. And if you feel like they're down that red zone, even if you don't know any other risk factors going on, talk to them, right? Just talk to them, okay? Suicides happen without warning. Fact. Many individuals who are suicidal may only show warning signs to those closest to them. These loved ones may not recognize what's going on, which is how it may seem like the suicide was without warning. Okay? Right? We have to be vigilant. This requires effort to be vigilant. And it almost sounds funny to say, but it just requires being a decent human being. Being aware of where somebody is at on a scale. Right? Okay? So
I miss my daughter's symptoms, so I'm not a decent human being.
No.
No.
Is that what you're saying?
No.
No.
No. What I'm saying is, it's a conscious decision to then be aware of it, right? That's what we're doing from this point on. I'm not saying anybody who missed signs or anything is a bad person, right? Can I
You're telling us about preventing suicide.
Yeah.
There's a room full of people here who haven't.
Sure.
What we need to do to prevent it. For me, I sit here and look at that and I think, this is what you're telling me. I'm looking at this and saying, that's what I should have done. So for me, it's just guilt.
But did you have all this information before?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Right.
I did. And we paid attention and we did these things.
Sure.
We talked to them. I rubbed her feet, the other hand, we went for walks. You know? And so sometimes it just doesn't work.
And I agree with you.
Yes.
Because we totally missed it with our kid.
You know? I mean,
yeah.
So anyway, sorry, this isn't supposed to be
No.
a therapy session. Right?
No, it's okay. And I do want everyone here to know that this is not me saying I'm perfect at any of this, right? That anyone here should feel guilt, right, for missing signs. I was surrounded by
things like, you know, there are times, you mentioned Groundhog Day.
Sure.
Remember that old man that dies in Groundhog Day? And he goes back and keeps trying, the guy dies anyway?
Yeah.
That's the way I felt. And we felt with our child. We tried, you know, and regardless of what we did, it happened.
Yes.
Right?
And that happens. I have a really good friend that, you know, that their daughter in and out. I mean, when she's 33 years old, it happened. But I say finally because her mother was like, I knew it. I knew the day that she tried to jump out of my car, that's where she was headed. I couldn't stop her. That's why we're all here.
And it is kind of a therapy session.
Well, we're here. I think that everybody here has dealt with it differently, or maybe we have some of the same feelings. I feel like that this is the place you should feel safe saying what you do. So you're safe here. You can say those things, and it's okay.
But none of us think that you
Are responsible.
And it's
Not one
that
of us.
you may not have missed the signs, they may have not been there, like with my son. There wasn't any signs. Even the counselor that I got him into when I thought there was a problem, had him for 2 hours, and then the day he died, he asked me when I told him, my wife asked him, did he see Cody on Friday? He said, yeah, how's he doing? When she told him, he dropped like a brick. So the guilt thing, that's not yours.
I think we all have I think everybody has a little bit of guilt. You know, I had a nephew. I knew he was depressed. I didn't live near him, but I knew he was depressed. I knew he was struggling. So, but I still had little kids at home. I still had to get out of bed, take care of them.
I'm sorry, sir.
No, don't be sorry. I actually appreciate it. I appreciate all of you, seriously. Because again, I don't want to stand up here and make it sound like I have all the answers, because I really don't. Like, I'll be the first to say I'm not professional at this. This is just something that's been very personal to me. And a lot of it's just passing along things that I was taught, and a lot of some things that I think everyone has heard before. Yeah.
And you know, some of this is facts. Real things we don't know about.
Sure.
They're different. We all teach this.
Yeah.
We all learn about it.
Yeah.
So there's more to it than just that.
Well, ultimately, and I don't know how to say this in a way that's soft, maybe, but ultimately everybody has a choice. We do our best to help those we know that are struggling, but short of locking them in a cell somewhere so they can't hurt themselves for the rest of their life, maybe. Do you know what I mean? There are limitations to what we can do as human beings. We do our best. And I believe that's what we've all done, is we've done our best. Right? Even knowing all this stuff, I have missed signs with my friends before. Right? We do our best with love as much as we can. So thank you everyone for your comments and for sharing. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna move past this for just a second. I feel like I think it would. Let's get back to this for just a second. Okay, so these are the warning signs, right? Let's just have a picture of that. Just go right ahead and so forth, right? General ones they talk about it. When somebody talks about suicide, take them seriously, right? Take them seriously. Take them at their word, okay? They may do some self-harming. They feel like there's no hope for the future. We talked about how they make life a burden on others. They may withdraw socially, and they may start saying goodbye and almost like they're putting their affairs in order. That's when you really start asking these questions. Like, latch yourself to them, ask the tough questions, do not let them out of your sight unless you take them to get help or help comes to them, right? Okay? So, again, I do not point these things out for anyone to feel guilty. It's very easy to get knowledge and then say, oh, I should have, right? These are things from us from now on. Okay? Talk about looking for the facts, their feelings. What are they feeling? What are they expressing? Right? How much pain are they in? Their actions. Are they displaying overwhelm and distress? Can you look at them and visibly see that they're overwhelmed? They're at that crisis mode. They're heading right for it. Do they worrisome behavior with changes? Do they talk about making a plan for suicide? Or do they have those risk factors we talked about, right? So facts. Feelings, actions, changes, threats, situations. Okay? So, this is the point where my friends found me. Okay? I had just some really, really good friends, actually. And the reason that they saw the signs was because they'd gone through it. And then they were stubbornly, annoyingly there. That's the best way to put it. Like, they checked on me all the time. They would come over at all hours of the night if I needed it. It didn't matter. They were there. Right? I was very lucky to have these people. I wanted them to go away sometimes because they were so annoying, but they loved me too much to do that. Because I was in crisis mode, okay? This is what they kept repeating over and over and over again. Don't give up, don't give up, don't give up. And they would see that, they would say, you're okay. Like, they would just hug me and say, we're gonna find a way through this, but you're okay, right? And that helped me in those moments to be able to move forward, kind of to keep going, right? It was all about empathy, right? And again, and I say this, I hope it comes across compassionately, but because of how personal this issue is for everyone here, you can do this with empathy. You can sit down with them, you don't judge, you're kind, you tell them they matter because they probably feel like they don't, right? You tell them they matter, okay? So, right, and I put this one up here, just a little bit of a joke, because this is why teenagers can either help or make things infinitely worse. Their friend tells them they're struggling. Why could a teenager then make it infinitely worse?
They don't tell someone else.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, any other thoughts? Right?
Bad advice.
Bad advice, right? Or the worst of the worst, and this has actually happened, but you'll have teenagers that will encourage that behavior, right? Or the friend says, yes, I'm self-harming, but don't tell anybody I'm okay. And then they don't tell anybody, and then that behavior continues.
What is the saying? My son says, snitches get stitches.
Snitches get stitches, right? Which is terrible, right? And this is what I always tell teenagers. I say it is better to lose a friend that's still alive than to lose that friend by suicide. Right? You tell those who need to hear it. Okay? Right? It's more important. So let's move forward. Anybody see this article about this UTA driver? Did you see this?
Just the other day.
Yeah. Right. So she's driving along and she sees what?
She sees someone walking on an interstate.
Yeah.
Was it a girl? I can't
I can't remember. I read it through really fast. But just, yeah. And she's been walking up on the freeway, right? And then she, yeah.
And then she just pulled her car over and just ran over to her. I mean, how many times we pass those people that we don't know what's going to happen, but all she did was hold her and love on her.
Yeah. Complete stranger.
Yeah.
Complete stranger. Right? And the stranger had started going over the barrier. Right? So she gets out and she sits down and she links arms with this person. Right? This driver does. She links arms and then she just sits there and she just talks to her, right? Until when?
Well, until help came.
Okay.
Or
yes. Yeah. No. But I love this because and she had empathy because she had lost, I think it was 3 people in her life to suicide. And I think she said something like to the effect of like, not losing you too, right? I'm not leaving anywhere, right? When we find somebody in crisis and that is struggling, we almost have to do the same thing. We have to commit to helping them in this process. It isn't enough to be like, you're going to be okay, see you later, right? Any first responders in here? Start CPR, or what's the rule? What's the rule? Yeah, start it. You don't stop it until, right? Help arrives, okay? And I say this is almost the exact same thing you do for somebody in crisis mode. If you are going, right, we start emotional and mental CPR with them to help them out of this place they're in, right? We don't just leave them on their own. We stick with them until they get help, right? We take them to get help or help comes to them, right? Those are the 2 options when you find somebody in that situation. You either take them to get help or you bring help to them, and those are the only 2 options, right? Okay? You can annoy the crap out of them if you want to, right? But you can grab your phone, right? And you can pick up the Safe Utah app. There's this. You can call the suicide prevention line. There's also one for veterans, right? You grab your phone, you do it, and you start talking to them and answering questions if that person doesn't want to yet, right? And you stay there until, right, they're going to get the help they need. Okay? It is life-saving. It is literally life-saving. Okay. So let me skip that one for just a second. Okay. So these pictures right here, this is my favorite pictures because they're so much fun. Okay. So I'm jumping in, and any Donny Osmond fans? All right. Good for 2 seconds. This is Donny Osmond Jr. right there. Okay. So he and I have been friends for a long time. He wanted to try bobsled. He did. Joined my team. Fast forward, he's racing with me, competing. In this race, what you don't see is that he slipped here and he fell in. He's about to land on my helmet and push me in the front of the sled. So I drove through the first turn blind, right? I got him back later because I broke his hand on this same time. So we crashed, and just going to do what that looks like. Everybody watch closely. Ready? Wait for it. Okay. Now, we didn't crash this bad. This was Team Brazil, right? I do not crash like this. I just rolled over, okay? They're fine. They have headaches. But this is what I did. Is I bent the front of the sled. We broke everything, right? Okay. When my friends found me when I was in crisis mode, I felt like my bobsled. Like I felt like everything was broken. I felt like this is the end of everything going forward, right? There's no solutions, there's nothing, okay? My friends found me, and, well, let me show you, let's see if this one will play. No, that one's even better. It shows a 4-man sled upside down, and they're all burning their necks on the ice. It's awesome. So let me talk a little bit about how I move forward, okay? How I move forward. So, We're going to skip that story. It's a good story, but this picture right here, you can't really see it, but my visor is open, okay? So we step up to the starting line, our visor's open. Why is it open? Yeah, well, yeah, so it doesn't fog up, right? So the buzzer goes off, I flip it down, we run, we jump in, and away we go, right? Buzzer goes off, I run, I jump in, I'm driving on the track. What did I forget to do? Okay. This is what my friends were trying to help me see in those moments. Again, logically, you can't talk someone out of crisis mode. You have to do empathy and emotion and help them get stabilized. And then you start talking about the logical planning and so forth. What my friends helped me see was my vision about my life was fogged. Right? I was looking at things wrong. I had that high perfectionist thing going on there. And yeah, when the hard things did happen, I didn't really know how to handle it. I was an overwhelmed, okay? So I found this quote: "It is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light." And that can be very difficult when somebody's struggling, right? But they're going to have to do that work. Again, we have to get them stabilized to the point where they can do that work. But they're going to have to start working on their attitude as well. They have to find some reason to hope. Right? Hope is everything. Okay? So anybody know who this is over on the left?
Yeah.
Who is it? Nope. Nope. Candy Bomber is a different guy, right? He had 2 movies. He did 2 movies on his life. They're awesome. Does this picture help?
Oh, yes!
Okay, Louis Zamperini. He was the oldest Olympian alive until he died just a couple years ago. Right? Amazing man, right? So he went to the games, right? Incredible runner, goes to World War II, gets shot down, 47 days at sea, 2 years as a prisoner of the Japanese. They tortured him, right? They tortured him. And the reason I tell this story is I love Louis. Like, he was a great example to the rest of us as athletes. But when I explain to people what it feels like to struggle with anxiety, it's like torture. You know what I mean? Like, it almost feels like you're being tortured. So when I read his story, and I read this quote, "Where there's still life, there's still hope." Right? And that's the message we're trying to get across to people in crisis, or people that are struggling. Where there's life, there's hope. Because life means you can change. Find help, find a better tomorrow. Okay? So Louis is awesome guy. He always said it isn't what happens to you that matters, it's what you do with what happens to you that does. Right? So we all go through hard times. Sometimes those hard times affect us more than they might others, or somebody might be crushed by the difficulties they're going through. Okay? We link arms with them and we help them through. Right? And we remind them it's not what happens to you, it's what we're going to do from this point on that's going to matter. Okay? So, life is beautiful, but it can be tough, right? I'm going to just blow through some of these really quickly, just so I can tell you. So, again, my friends were annoyingly stubborn. They went with me to doctor's offices, they went with me to my first counseling appointments because I thought it was stupid and nobody does this, right? I kind of had that athlete mentality, which was not very smart, okay? But they would go with me to these things, and they would have these long conversations with me, because a lot of them had been through it. When they told me, I know what you're going through, I believe them because they have gone through it, right? Maybe not in the exact same way, but I trusted them. That empathy that I felt from them, that love, meant all the world. They would remind me that it's going to be okay, okay? So I decided to come up with, in the midst of all this, I said, you know what, I got to do something. I got to create something. I got to do something because this is driving me crazy. So I came up with the Athlete Outreach Project, which is where athletes like me, we work with nonprofits like this one, and we use our influence to spread hope or spread their message and cause and so forth. But this was our motto. This is our motto. There is always hope. Right? And I know I've done this at corporate events, right? I've done this like eBay, contacts, all sorts of things, right? You throw up a phase like that, and you'll get some people that are like, oh, that's cheesy. And I'm like, no, because I know what it's like to be in the darkest place and struggle to see the light, like Aristotle said. And I know that it can be found in those darkest places. It may require a lot of help to find it, but it can be found, okay? So, you can believe you're going to win or you can believe you're going to lose. You can believe you're going to live, or you can believe you're going to die. At the end of the day, it is about choice, right? Now, when we're talking about mental health can affect choices, right? But everyone still has that power to choose. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to help people out of crisis mode, get into healthy places to be able to make good choices that moves them back to gross national happiness, right? We want them to see their worth, that their worth never changes no matter what they're going through, right? Their value does not change even if they're hurting, right? So let me just tell you this story. Let's see how we're doing. Yeah, we're close. A couple minutes left. So this is my grandpa down here in this corner right here. So I've spent the past about 5 years or so studying his unit. They were paratroopers in World War II. They fought in the Pacific. Okay, most of them were 21 years old, right? The youngest, I asked him when to jump out of combat. He said, scared, but you have to go. So this is them right there. So I'm hoping I have, I'm not find that story later. So this guy right here, okay, his name is Billy Pettit. He lives in Texas. Any Texans here? Okay. If there was, we would have known it by just asking that question. Billy was 16 years old after Pearl Harbor. He tried to enlist. Okay. So Billy, he goes to the recruiter stations, and they're all like, "You're too young. I can't sign you up." And he's like, "Crap." So he was in Arizona at the time. So he drove like across the state to get different recruiters, and they all said no. And they went to like the next state, and they all said no. And then he went back to his state, and they said no. And then he went to California, and they said no. And then he came back, and they did something. I don't know exactly. He could explain it better, but they said, okay, we're now into the year of your draft gate, so you can join. Right? So he's 17 years old, joins the paratroopers, which, if anyone knows, if you've seen Band of Brothers and so forth, this was the best of the best. Like you had to have pretty high IQ to get in. You had to be in great shape. You had to have it all together to get in there. So Billy, he fights with them. He trains, and they go over to Leyte, and they fight for 49 days in the jungles and the mountains. Like, they lived off rats and dogs and whatever they could find. Like, it was brutal. The Japanese would try to sneak in at night, knife them in their sleep, or drop a grenade in their fire hole. Like, this is brutal. I mean, 17 years old. Right? 17 years old. And then they go to Luzon to help liberate the city of Manila. In one of the battles, they had to push the Japanese off this mountaintop. And while they're up there, one of the guys gets wounded. So the medic gives them some morphine, lays them in a trench. They go back to fighting. Well, there were only 90 of D Company up there, and they realized they were fighting 350 Japanese. Nope, this is from the next book I'm writing, which is on our unit and so forth, right? So the guy that was laid into the trench that was wounded was Chuck Hudson, right? So the captain of D Company says, we have to go now, or else we're going to have so many wounded, everyone will have to carry the wounded, and nobody will be left to defend the retreating wounded and so forth, right? So they all take off. Guess who got left behind? Chuck Hudson. So the Japanese are now up on the hilltop. And D Company is now getting down the bottom of the hill, and they realize we left Chuck. Who is going to go back up and get him? First guy to volunteer, 17-year-old Billy Pettit and one of his buddies. And they say, that's our friend up there. And we are not going to leave him. And so they head back up the hill, right? What are they going back up into? 350 Japanese that are now in their defensive positions and so forth, right? Luckily, they had been throwing white phosphorus grenades, so it started a fire, so there was a lot of smoke. So Billy and the other paratrooper are trying to weave between the Japanese patrols, and they don't know where Chuck is, right? They just know the medic put him somewhere. And the medic described where he might be. So they go up there, and they're doing this, and they find Chuck, right? And so they put him on a poncho, and they're pulling him out of there. And Billy told me, he's like, I don't know how any of us made it out of there. It's like, I don't know. And so they carried him down the hill, and then two other guys helped him, and they got him back to safety, and he lived. And Chuck said, 65 years later, he said, how do you thank somebody for for 65 years of a wonderful life. Right? How do I thank them for the opportunity to have my kids and my grandkids and meet my beautiful wife and go to college and do all those things? The lives you will save and the lives you will touch by being involved in this organization, right? They may not thank you in this life, but they might. But you will be giving them 65 years or however many years of life, of wonderful life, right? Now I told you that to do this, we have to be willing to go into some tough places. That means listening with empathy to whatever they say, right? To whatever's going on. It means listening with love. And really what it means is being an angel, okay? They were the 11th Airborne Angels. Okay? Like Billy, we have to be willing to rescue. And I know you are. I look in your eyes and I know you are. And again, my heart goes out to you because of the hurts and the losses. And I hope I can say this right, but I hope that that hurt and those losses can become that motivation to stand with those of us who say not one more, right? Not one more loss. Okay? We can all be angels like these guys, and we can all be angels to those around us. Right? That's what makes us champions. The cause we are going to defend is the cause of life. The life of those we know, the life of those we love, or sometimes it is the life of a stranger, like that UTA bus driver found. But it's being willing to say, not one more, okay? I don't know what you're going through, but let's talk. And then you ask the questions you all know, right? You ask the tough questions, and you stay with them until they get help, right? Or you take them to help, whatever it needs to be. And you help them through that the best you can. And that's all we can do at the end of the day is the best we can, right? To save as many lives as we can. Let me just leave this last thought really fast. To be an angel requires taking action, which we've been talking about, right? Which this organization is all about. Namaste. Anybody know what that is? I didn't know until my sister told me. She's a yogi. We call her the tree hugger of the family, but we love her to death. But somebody who said yes, who knows what Namaste means? Tia?
I honor the white in you.
Yes.
You honor the white in me.
Yes. And that's what it is. Namaste, right? Is I honor the light and the divinity within you. Right? That's what we're doing. Even if they're in the darkest place that they can be in, we honor the light that is within them. Okay? We guide them, just like those guys guided Chuck Hudson off the hill, we guide them to the help they need. Right? We do it with empathy, and we do it with as much love as we can muster, all the love that we have. Because love ultimately is what makes the difference. My friends didn't have all the answers when I was struggling, but they had all the love, and that's what made the difference. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you for listening for a little bit, and I'm going to stay for a little bit if any of you have any questions. I'd love to meet you, but thank you for being part of this, and thank you for letting me come.